All right, everybody. So again, just continuing, I'm going to try to make these videos short because I know long videos tend to not be as useful, right? So last video, I showed you how we can use the overall parts we have and edit each piece, cut our holes, right? So now what we're going to end up doing is I am going to start showing you how we're going to use some of these standard parts, right? So as you know, this follower guide here, this is going to allow a tolerance so that our follower can move up and down on the cam with the motion we want, right? And get turned by our axle, which the axle and the follower are the same size typically. Doesn't have to be. Some of you may have different ones, right? But it's going to be guided by one of these little shoes. If you want to use the roller, you absolutely can. And you also have this crank, right? So if you're anything like me, that's pretty confusing. So I am just going to show you how I'm going to do this. I am going to have one video on just this subassembly and another video on just this subassembly, right? So let's go ahead and do this with a top-down approach, and we'll do the axle next, right? So I'm going to go into my box assembly of the copy that I've made to continue where we are. All right. And I'm going to need to acquire some parts that have already been created, right? So in this instance, I am going to want one of these. If you have multiple holes, you may want more than one of those, right? I am also going to want one of those, which is the follower itself, okay? And then I'm going to want one of the feet. Some of you will use the roller. Some of you will use the cam guide. I'm going to use the cam guide because I've found that that works the best. So we are going to assemble these all together. All right. The two for this subassembly that we are going to use a fasten mate as well as a slider mate. Okay. So fasten is kind of the same. When I say fasten, I'm kind of saying the same thing as glue. Hopefully we remember that from before, not the end of the world. But what a lot of individuals are going to get confused at are when you click fasten, you start hovering over these boxes. You're going to see, and really any part, you're going to see this little yellow circle, and then you're going to also see the white rectangles or squares, right? Basically, what we're trying to get at here when we're hovering over and we hit the fasten button is that's kind of like, where do you want to glue it? If we were doing this by hand, we would be able to literally, like, our brain is going to say where to glue. In this instance, we need to tell the computer to do it, right? So if we're fastening this, essentially what I'm going to do first is I'm going to glue or fasten that piece to our shoe here, right? This is where you're going to have to kind of use your mouse more than likely. If you ever get stuck, if you hover over a piece of geometry and hit shift, those squares and circles will not go away. So I'm going to glue right here. You'll see that I know I clicked that, right? To right here. And again, I'm going to show you some tricks here. When I click this, you'll see that it automatically glues where I want it to. Now, hopefully some of you are going to start picking up this, and we could actually slide this down a little bit because, as you can see, we want this to be glued inside. However, for the purposes of what you are all learning, if you didn't catch that, that's okay. All right. So right now, if I move this around, you will see that those are glued together. Okay. The next fasten that we need to do is we are going to fasten, right, this individual piece. Notice that I clicked here instead of here, and you'll see why in a moment, to this individual piece, right? So again, if I hold shift, I'm going to be able to see the options of the geometry I have. Okay, so the reason I did it in the middle is because I would actually want to push this down. If you went and clicked the bottom of this piece, you'd have to use offset and like pop points, right? So again, what this really means is that I have this entire thing glued together. What probably makes sense is we could right click this and hit fix. That way we actually can't move our box. That may make your life a little bit easier. The last thing that we are going to do is click the slider mate. Okay, so the slider mate is going to do exactly what you think. It's going to allow us to slide each of the individual pieces that we have up and down. A lot of students get confused when they click this because the fasten that they previously did doesn't come along. All right, it just works with one component at a time. And now when you actually do this, this is going to slide together. You can see that I actually made a mistake because I clicked on the wrong one. Some of you will want to edit these. Some of you will just want to delete and restart. Both are 100% fine. Okay, so I'm just going to delete and restart. I'll pull this over, click the slider mate. Again, before I must have clicked the corner instead of the center, right? Same thing here. I'm going to go here and click the center to make sure that these are lined up, and now they are. Okay, and now I can slide this directly up and down. So again, trying to keep these short. Hopefully this makes sense. Looking forward to seeing what you create next.